All right, welcome back to Politics and Profits. How are you navigating the challenges of aging? Well, my next guest, Richard Wagospak, has some sound, solid advice. He's the founder of New Life Counseling, which provides support for mental health and healing. Let's welcome Richard back to the show, and he joins us from Oklahoma. All right, Richard, good to see you. Good to have you with us. That's sort of a broad statement. I'm sure you can take that different ways, but what's some of the advice you have out there for people who are looking at navigating the challenges of aging?
Well, many times people do pretty well in life until they hit a crisis. And a lot of times those crises happen in our later years, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And many things that were done halfway are not completely right in terms of our development or social relationships, and all get tested. And we can find ourselves in quite a complicated emotional state, and
Sure.
maybe even have destructive habits or patterns of relating that need to be addressed sooner rather than later, so that a better life can begin again.
Yeah, what you said, that makes sense. That it's when a crisis hits, and oftentimes it can happen anytime, but oftentimes it happen older and later in life. There's a new study out which says that happiness is directly connected to the quality of our relationships. That probably doesn't surprise you, does it?
No, no. I mean, that's an extraordinarily obvious thing for therapists. And relationships can sometimes wax and wane. I mean, we're not guaranteed a perfect friendship with our best friend from high school when we're, in our 50s. We're not even guaranteed a perfect relationship with our spouse or even anything close to it. And what happens in aging is there's more and more pieces of meat and vegetables thrown into the soup, where more and more good things can happen, but more and more treacherous things can happen too. And so older people are already dealing with a lot of losses. You're starting to lose your processing speed, your executive functions kind of diminish a little bit. You can find ways to overcompensate, but that's a struggle. Your episodic memory is not quite as good. And so, you may have financial losses or money you've had to give to relatives to help them, and you might really be facing financial strains. Relationships can be disillusioning. Your own closest relatives can sometimes disappoint you, deeply, and it's harder to make new friends. And so sometimes it's really difficult to navigate where you are interiorly, and to assess what is best for you to do from this point forward.
You mentioned crisis earlier. What advice might you have for those that get hit with a crisis, say later in life? How to deal with it?
Well, you want to avoid what they call awfulizing. Uh, that, in other words, you can be totally shocked and set back. You don't want to hurt yourself. You want to, if you find yourself raging at others, you don't want to rupture those relationships any worse than they already are. So sometimes it means retreating, maybe even actually going on a retreat with a religious organization or on your own for a trip by yourself for a week or so. But a lot of times it does mean seeing a therapist and doing it sooner rather than later, so that whatever's wrong, you can get it upstream rather than downstream, where really deeper and worse problems can happen. Sometimes a spouse is shocked by a divorce notice. They're shocked by some kind of legal notice, financial loss, or some other thing like that. These are not causes to just completely, despair or anything. It's just a time to consolidate and try to move forward with your best.
That sounds like great advice. Don't despair. Consolidate, re-strategize, replan, and move forward. I've met a couple people who are older in life who have made a point to completely avoid any news or a conversation that's negative. They say that's not who I am. I just want to focus on a positive, almost their own reality. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, a lot of times people have to face their lopsided development when they get older. You have different developmental challenges throughout your life, and sometimes people slip through those challenges and they kind of don't really actualize who they are at any given point, and they develop strategies of avoiding conflicts that would actually be developmental agendas. Like communication difficulties with your wife. Well, you develop ways of dealing with your wife rather than constructively relating, and that could do with business partners, friends, or whatever. You take shortcuts along the way, but then you don't develop the skills that developmental challenge was meant to intervene for. Was meant to help you become something better as you get older and better and wiser. And so sometimes when we reach a crisis when we're older, we have to face certain stunted parts of ourselves, and man alone can't do it. I'm a Christian. I believe that through the help of a therapist and God and good friends and good pastors, that we can get to a better place and be at peace with ourselves and who we are.
It sounds like good advice. Um, Good information. It's an important topic. It really does not get talked about much in society or certainly in the media. Any final comments you have on navigating the challenges of aging, Richard?
Well, all of us are interested in being able to make an honest, holistic assessment of ourselves and come up with constructive resolutions for a better life. And sometimes this just can't happen without having feedback. In other words, a lot of who we are, our identity, is based on, in some respect, how we are in relation to others. We're not just who we are on our own. And, the two final stages of aging, according to Erickson, is generativity versus stagnation and ego integrity versus despair. In other words, we have to have the courage to find out who we are and to make our best plans for being fully human and our final decades on Earth.
All right. Good information, Richard. It's the first time I've come across this in interviewing anyone, and we appreciate that. I'm sure our viewers found it very beneficial. Richard Wagospack of New Life Counseling, we thank you for joining us.
Thank you.